Unitarian Universalism draws from and is inspired by many sources, including many of the world's religions. This weekend marks the Jewish holy days of Rosh Hashanah. Shana Tova, a sweet new year to those in the room and those who are celebrating across the world today and this weekend. Some have or will engage in the ritual of tashlish, throwing breadcrumbs into a running body of water to cast away any sins of the past year. It is fitting to connect the many ways that water touches many of the world's religions. Let us now take some time to sit together in the stillness or relative stillness of this space, even as the sounds of life may go on in and around us. You might place your feet on or towards the floor. Your hands might just rest gently in your lap or maybe around a loved little one, wherever your hands are most comfortable. And you might close your eyes or soften your gaze perhaps towards the chalice or the floor. That can help us get quiet and centered. Today we have a meditation written by religious education professional Jamila Batchelder and minister Molly Hausch-Gordon. And during this time, you'll be invited to imagine the strength of water in its many forms. If a form of water is named and you don't know those words, just let them flow on by until another word comes along that you do know. And if you'd rather, you could just focus on imagining floating in your favorite body of water until the music starts and not worry about any of the words at all. The strength of water. The strength of water takes on many, many forms, just as each of us has a unique and necessary strength that we bring to our community and to the work of love. Take a moment now to drop down into the deep wellspring of your own spirit and bathe yourself in the strength that is the groundwater of your person. Are you a roaring waterfall, wearing rock away with sheer force of will? Are you a tiny drop of water in a crevice, breaking it open slowly, steadily? Are you buoyant like a great salt lake, practiced at holding others aloft? Are you tenacious like the mountain stream, finding your way down and around every obstacle you face? Are you still and calm like the pond or lake at daybreak, offering radiant peace by your shores? Are you in touch with hidden depths, pulling from a vast well? Do you soothe like the steam rising from a cup of tea? Do you dissolve away stubborn muck like water left in a pot to soak? Do you soften and smooth the edges like a creeping fog? Do you clear away distraction like a cleansing rain? Do you roll with the ebb and flow like the ocean waves? Settle your mind upon the strength, the power that is yours, and draw that strength into your heart. Draw it deeper still into your soul. As we gather together the many waters of this community, we need each of your power, each of your resilience, each of your love to make us whole.
Today, we celebrate and honor the gifts of water and community. For many years, this congregation has held a gathering of water service in September. It's taken different shapes in different years. Each year, people are invited to bring the songs of ponds, creeks, lakes, rivers, of oceans, fountains, swimming pools, and faucets to be poured together, a ritual of return and renewal that is a tradition among Unitarian Universalist congregations across the continent. With all that has changed in the past 3.5 years, the opportunity to engage in what has become a familiar ritual is even more precious, a given that we no longer assume or take for granted. And with the ways in which we've experienced the power of water here and across the globe just this summer, we also enter into this ritual with humility. Water is powerful. You may have brought water with you today, water collected while on adventures near or far, or quiet time spent at home, puddles in the park, or the small lakes that have appeared during one of the many summer storms. Maybe water from a hospital or office, a garden hose, or your faucet. You may be planning on using water from the pitchers available, and for those online, there will be water poured on your behalf. Whatever the source of water, it can represent so much. It may be our connection to a particular place, to a special time, to people we love. It may represent a feeling, a sense of peace or hope or sadness. Maybe for you, the water represents so many tears, as our lives can include losses. Maybe for you, the water represents love, a love that is with us always in celebrations and in the hardest of times. Whatever the water is for you, that meaning is welcome in this ritual, as are you. When it is time to pour, just share a bit, as there certainly is a thing as too much water. And we send our thoughts to those who have experienced flooding in Libya and other places, and the recent Atlantic storm, Lee. If you are wishing that you had brought water with you today, don't worry. There are pitchers, and the water there has the ability to symbolize whatever you wish that water to be. So in a few moments, we'll invite those in the sanctuary to make your way to one of the 4 vessels that are at the top of the circle. Thanks to Tom Compron, Robin Salvin, Lars Dahl, and Leah Purcell for being present at the table for this ritual.
As you think of all that this water represents to you, and you pour a little bit of water in, you then return to your seat, just continuing the circle around. Maria will be playing a piece called The River by composer Alexis French. And you might, before you get up, look around you to see if there's anyone who would benefit from you delivering water on their behalf, for folks who maybe don't navigate the stairs quite as easily. Let us enter into this sacred ritual, this meaningful dance of water joining water, a confluence of our journeys, the river flowing in our souls, inspired by one another and the great mystery of life. Let us begin. We now pour in water on behalf of those here online, those who couldn't make it to service at all today. We pour water that was saved from last year's service, which also has water in it from many years before. Water that has come from many places around this beautiful earth, including from our partner church in Marj-Varșehei, Romania. And to all that, we add today's water to blend together. It is purified. It will be used throughout the year for other rituals like next week's teacher blessing, child dedications, and house blessings. We'll also give some to the memorial garden with thanks to this congregation's ancestors, as well as to the Mohawk River to honor the Kaniekehaka, also known as the Mohawk peoples of the Haudenosaunee, with gratitude to this precious earth.
We bless this water and its capacity to nourish, to sustain life, to reflect beauty, to inspire going with the flow. We honor the nourishing and life giving waters of this beautiful planet that we share, and to offer gratitude for those who nourish and sustain this community with your presence, truth, and goodness. May we all be blessed and be a blessing. This month, our theme is Sources of Inspiration. Unitarian Universalism is like a river with many tributaries. Our inspirations can come from so many different sources. And on this day, when we celebrate the power and strength found in community, we also honor the many sources of inspiration that have brought each of us to this moment and that we can be for one another. A bit ago, you were invited to pour some water that likely came from lots of different places. We now invite you to type into the chat or speak aloud into the room what that water symbolized. What does the water mean to you?
Connection with friends. Joy. Like this. Wow. So great. So short. Unexpected.
Adventure.
That's what you call it.
I am
Family. Renewal. Kristin, if there's some in the chat, would you be willing to call those out?
adventure, involve new friends, water from the pond, river conflict, pool, tranquility, and swimming,
Mhm.
love and gratitude.
Mhm. So many different meanings, so many different sources, so many different journeys. Just as the water was changed when it was poured together, I can't go back and pull out the bit that we brought. May we also be changed by our time together, by sharing our stories, by sharing inspiration with one another.
During our study leave in August, as we began planning for the new year, we started thinking about what monthly themes might be for this year. What might we as a congregation need to be thinking about, contemplating, learning? So much has changed and things just keep changing. Like the weather this past summer, we are living in a time of shifts and changes, of extremes and surprises. Some of what we've known has dissolved, morphing into something else, or not quite yet morphing into something else, or it may have faded away. Some of the something else's that may have taken shape in our haste to return to a sense of normalcy, whatever that might mean in our lives. But those who study congregational life and family systems strongly encourage us to pause, to take a breath, to engage in more deepening discernment about what is needed now for our families, our congregations, in the wider community, in our nation, and in the world. Scientists and activists and scholars and environmentalists are in New York City right now for Climate Week. Folks are lining up to march to demand an end to our dependence on fossil fuels. How do we need to live differently to protect our precious home? What do we ourselves need to change?
In our policy-based governance that this congregation uses, it is the board's responsibility to discern an annual focus of ministry. Sometimes we call it the AFOM. The shared ministries of this congregation then have the responsibility to focus on a particular area as named by the board. After some deep work, we share that they have named this year's annual focus of ministry as to grow our connections and widen our welcome while deepening a sense of shared purpose, sustainability, and hope. We will forge a path toward this through our actions and our compassion for each other, the wider community, and the earth. You'll be hearing more about that annual focus of ministry as the year goes on. We are living in a precarious time, and it would be easy to get overwhelmed by the stresses of climate change, challenges to our democracy, corruption, corporate greed as workers strike, police brutality, especially towards people of color, and so much more.
In the summer, I read a book called Zen and the Art of Saving the Planet by Vietnamese Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh. May his memory be for a blessing. For decades, he taught mindfulness practices to help thousands, perhaps millions of people in some of the most challenging of times. In reading excerpts from his Dharma talks, that is, his talks in which he teaches about Buddhism, over and over his message was about the ways we are. It's called interbeing. Maybe you are familiar with it. We in Unitarian Universalism might call that interdependence. He said, true mindfulness is not only a path leading to happiness, but it is a path of happiness. When you practice breathing mindfully, your in-breath is not a means to an end. If you know how to breathe, then you get pleasure, peace, and healing right away while breathing. If you suffer while breathing, if you have a tendency to think, I'm suffering now so I can experience something better later, that's not right mindfulness, he says. In right mindfulness, every step of the path is the path itself. We need to keep reminding ourselves to practice in such a way that we get peace, calm, and joy right away. Now, I don't know about you, but I am not always mindfully breathing that way. How about you? It is a practice that we are being invited to. And it can be important to have a reminder to practice being mindful, being present to what is in each moment, to get in touch with our own moral compass, to connect with the spirit of life and love, whom some call God, because we are so often busy, right? We have places to go and stuff to do, bills to pay, groceries to get. And we can practice mindfulness right in the midst of all of that. Rather than suffering in traffic, we can pay attention to the in-breath and the out-breath and bring ourselves a bit of peace. And it can be so hard to remember, perhaps especially in traffic. And that's why it's called a practice. So we have a touchstone, something to help remind us all, a touchstone of mindfulness we'd like to give you. It is a blue glass stone to carry with you or to put in a special place in your home to remind you of the water that connects us, that transformation is possible, that being grounded where you are matters. And the chalice we painted on it is to remind you that you belong here, that you matter, that you are somebody alongside several other somebodies. And what you understand about life, yourself, the divine, is a piece of the larger beauty, the larger truth, the larger love that holds us all. And so we ask our volunteers to help us pass these baskets along, and each of you are invited to choose one and then pass the basket to your neighbor. This benediction from retired co-ministers Rose Eddington and Mel Hoover. Water unites us. All water is one water, shape-shifting as it goes on in its unending cycle. The stream we gather by unites us with all the waters of the world, for all of life depends on water. That's why this common everyday element on which our very lives depend is sacred. In our thankfulness for water, let us remember to honor, cherish, and care for it, for our own lives, for all life touched by water, and for those who come after us. And as we